Well, Kristen, what'd you think of Bioshock?
Well, this is the first time I've revisited Bioshock in 7 years. And this most recent time, I took my time. I wasn't just shooting the stuff.
Right.
You know, I was walking around. I was looking at things.
Tourist.
Basking in it. And I thoroughly enjoyed my revisiting of Rapture. It's just, I just love being there. I love slowly.
Rapture.
Yeah, it's very intriguing. You know, they don't, you know, spit it all out there in front of you. They let you poke at it. They let you see what's going on. The world is just full of stuff because of how limited everything is. It's all just hallways and small rooms. And that would not exist in a video game anymore. Like, Bioshock Infinite is emblematic of that fact. We need big, we need huge, we need giant set pieces, we need open worlds, we need player choice. And Bioshock was like, screw all that. We're a video game in the late 2000s. We're going to make a video game where you walk through hallways and you kill stuff. And you just find the stuff, you kill the guys, and then you get to the end. And I feel like it's very like tantalizing. I liked getting the audio logs because they gave me little morsels into this world that I was exploring.
Right.
And it kind of peters out towards the end. There's a lot of bad gameplay stuff going on, but I still think that it's, like, as far as the story's concerned, it's pretty watertight for the most part.
Okay, so here's my counterpoint. If this is a game where if you're like talking to somebody about it, it's like awesome. It's like, dude, you go to this underwater city and it's like all like destroyed because these people are going crazy and there's like warring like political figures happening and like they're experimenting on these little girls. Ooh, these little girls, you know.
Yeah.
I remember playing through this game, and I remember feeling this like disconnect where I didn't really fully understand what was going on. And in my mind, I chalked that up to me being like a dumb teenager who didn't like this game. Obviously, was playing with these ideas, and I just didn't understand it. And then going back to it, I think that disconnect is just inherent to the game because so much of the plot is these little talking heads in the corner. Just like all these little things are like this huge disconnect for me, where it should be this amazing experience of going through the city. This like underwater city, and it never feels like that to me because you don't see people and people never talk to you face to face, and you are just like this just like silent protagonist man marching through the city while people in other areas of the city are like constantly just like knowing what you're doing or something. I never understood that, but they're just talking to you constantly and like telling you what's happening, but it's just like like I've never felt in this world because it felt like it was being spoon-fed to me through these things that happened some other time or like in a different place and you can't see it but you can hear it happening.
Yeah, I feel ya. There's the audio logs, they're very disjointed. They jump around in time a lot and they just offer you little like snippets and they'll be like sporadically plot relevant. Sometimes they'll just be fluff. Sometimes they'll be like very important ones
that are glowing.
Exactly. And as a result of that, and as a result of them playing over the gameplay, it can be very hard to really digest everything that you just heard. Yeah. And it leads to you not really understanding what the story is getting at or what what all the backstory is, how everything was set up over the course of a playthrough. I feel like it works better when you kind of already know the facts and then the audio logs that you're listening to are kind of like little anecdotes that give you something to map those facts on.
Speaking of which, the terminology is bad because it's Adam and it's Andrew and it's Atlas and it's like
slugs, stomach slugs.
Yeah, you got your because you got Eve.
Yes.
Which is what you use to use plasmids.
Yes.
But you have Adam, which is what people want. And that's how the plasmids work. But so is Eve. But Eve is like a mana thing. Right? You're with me?
Yes. I'm following you.
The splicers have gone Adam crazy. So they're trying to kill the little sisters. And then, so they need the big daddy, which is a man in a suit who protects the little sister.
Yes.
And then the little sisters on the reverse of that are harvesting the atom from the splicers. I don't know. Yeah. I get lost in the details. It's like it feels very labored to me, this premise.
It does. It does to an extent. When like all the pieces are firing together, sometimes you get like a little glimpse of that vision.
Definitely.
That was in his head.
Yeah.
And there's explanations for things. You know, this world collapsed because of Adam and Eve and all that stuff, and that kicked off this this like race to the bottom in terms of like hyper-capitalist stuff and trying to sell the plasmids, and then there's no regulation of the plasmids and stuff. Like there's little glimpses of hope, but then at the same time there's a part of me throughout the course of this game that was just like, well, how much of this is an excuse for them to put creepy little girls into this like supposedly survival horror video game?
Yeah, that's my thought exactly, is some guy came up with that concept and then they worked backwards, and so you get this like weird plasmid system. I'm right there with you in terms of this is an awesome idea, and fighting these guys in giant diving suits at the bottom of the ocean in like Art Deco like strip clubs and stuff is pretty awesome. So
heck yeah,
I can't take that away from it.
Dude, I love that Art Deco look. They nailed it.
Yeah.
And the music, Andrew Ryan sounds pretty good too. I like his voice. It feels very of the era.
It's very appropriate for that character.
Absolutely.
Which leads me to my other point I wanted to get in here is I appreciate this game a lot more if I think of it as like a B horror movie type of thing. Okay. Because I think in a lot of ways it is, which is kind of mean to say, but like, you know, there's the whole thing where there's like at the very start there's like the lady in the crib, and it's like, ooh.
Yes.
Because you can see like the shadow on the wall and everything. And it's like, ooh, this is creepy. There's just a lot of like people like spring into life and go, like, just, you know, just a lot of like dumb horror stuff going on.
Yeah, that's a good juxtaposition. Like it seems like the beginning of the game they very separately crafted. Like they've spent like I feel like probably like half the time developing this game in those opening 3 hours.
Sure.
And then you've got, you know, the creepy shadow with the lady crying over the crib, and then juxtapose that with you coming up to a dead body and it jumping up in your face.
Like I feel like in Bioshock Infinite they swung way too hard the other direction. Where it's like, you're just killing people. You're a monster. But in this game, I never felt that way because everybody's like a cartoon character that you're killing. Because they're always just like saying like random stupid things.
Yeah.
I feel like you're supposed to like feel bad or something about going into the city and killing a bunch of people or something. And I never really felt that way.
I just saw them as obstacles so that I could get my crap done.
Heck yeah, and then loot them. Eat their pet bars and such.
Yes. Oh, that feels good. That feels good. I like looting this stuff. I like how stuffed the levels are. There's things in nooks and crannies galore.
It's true.
I like it.
It's like good if Fallout was good. Like if 3D Fallout was good.
Yeah.
That's what it reminded me of a lot.
Yeah.
How do you feel about it being underwater? Do you feel like that comes through? Or adds to it?
I guess that's hard to say. It kind of does in some senses, but like it doesn't pervade the entire thing in a way that I think it probably should have. Like for a lot of sections, the fact that this city is under the water is completely inconsequential.
Yeah.
Other than the fact that there's giant dudes in diving suits walking around, and sometimes there'll be some water leaking in. So I understand how it's like a very metaphorical for the plot, but that's probably the best reason why it's underwater.
Okay, but how about that combat? How are you feeling about this combat?
So the combat, right? Played on the hardest difficulty this most recent time through, and the first 3 hours it was kind of in a good spot. I had to like really maneuver around these guys, smack them with the wrench. I had to really dodge their bullets as I tried to get headshots with the pistol because almost nothing else did damage. And the big daddies are just bullet sponges, so you just wait until you get to the end of the game and then come back and mow them all down.
Oh, really? Okay.
Because the crossbow is broken.
Okay.
As soon as you get the crossbow, there's no reason to have any other weapon because like the scaling works so weird. The enemies, like you do less and less damage to them the further along you get through the game. So the later sections, you'll be using the pistol, and you might as well not, because even a headshot barely even scratches them. So there's no use in investing your resources or time into anything else other than shoot headshot and peeps with the crossbow, and then picking up your bolts after you shoot them.
Right.
So that's not good. That's not a good difficulty ramp. That completely breaks down any like survival horror things that they were even going for.
Sure. And I just don't find the combat satisfying, just in terms of the way it works. Like, it feels like I'm playing Oblivion or something. Like, nothing has any weight to it, or... Like, people don't react when they get shot. It's just like, I'm watching the health bar tick down.
Yeah, that is true. Yeah, it does kind of feel like an RPG in that respect. I feel like when the combat, in particular, really shined was in a couple of sequences where you have to, you know, like, defend the point. Where... Yeah, the turrets, and then that was bad. Where like there was like there were like 2 sections where it's like, hey, I got to open the door, but you wait. Says Atlas.
Yeah.
And then he's like, oh no, the splicers, they're coming in. And so you know, you lay down your mines, you get those set up, you hack all your turrets and get the camera going so that you can just sit back, relax, and watch as they just walk into explosions and turrets firing machine gun bullets into their faces.
They also give you all these powers to play around with?
Yes.
I feel like they don't incentivize you at all to mess with that stuff, because...
No.
Yeah. Like, wrench and crossbow, you're good.
Yes. On the hardest difficulty especially...
Yeah.
That also further disincentivized me to use any of my powers, because if I needed to use one to get further in the story, those things use a ridiculous amount of Eve. So you gotta save that stuff for not enemies. You gotta save that stuff for progression. But when you're doing that, you're not using it in combat, and then it's all boring. It's just headshotting dudes with a crossbow.
Right.
What's the point at that point? Yeah, I feel like maybe on medium you could like shock people to stun them to line up a headshot. I feel like that would be, you know, that's a good satisfying kind of thing you could do.
1-2 punch.
It would get old, and like lots of the powers. There's so many powers.
Yeah.
You can't use all of them.
Yeah.
In one encounter, let alone in the entire game.
Yeah.
And so many of them are just like the same thing. Like here's a stun, here's a stun.
Right.
Here's one that'll damage him a little bit. Here's one that'll distract him. Another one that'll distract him.
Traps. Yeah.
Traps.
And they don't... It's not like the enemies towards the end... Like, you're fighting the same enemies through the entire game, so it's not like this enemy has a shield, so you have to use this power to break the shield, such and such. It's just like dudes running at you, and you can just shoot them.
Yes. There was one gameplay section where they, because of story reasons, they take away your powers and then they give you a random one every now and then. That could have been very good, but if they like coordinated what powers they gave you when. But it seems like they're just randomizing those powers, just throwing them at you, and you're like, okay, well, this one's crap. But it doesn't matter because I don't use the powers anyway.
Yeah, just shoot them. Like, I can picture, like, this, like, really cool part where it's like you don't have any weapons anymore. Like, not even a wrench. You just have this, like, randomizing plasmid thing going on. That would be cool. And then, the end of the game is kind of this, like, downward trend.
It is. It gets really fetch questy really fast.
Yeah. And I don't mind. I actually really liked the part where you're in the apartments.
Yes.
I thought that was really interesting because it's like, it's such, to me, it is just like pure Fallout style where it's like, these are just little environmental stories that you're going to wander into.
You get to see good little vertical slices of a life in rapture.
That's why I think the Sander Cohen part is probably, I think that's my favorite part.
Yeah, and I think that section is very well placed because you're, like the first couple areas, you're just kind of trying to get to Andrew Ryan, and then it's kind of ramping up. They're like, okay, now we need you to go here, and this is your next destination before you get there. And then that was a nice way to do a detour because it's just so interesting. Yeah. Otherwise, it would have been, just another detour.
Yeah, if that Sander Cohen part wasn't in this game, I feel like it would suffer a lot. I find it even weird the way that you meet up with Andrew Ryan and then the game kind of keeps going, I feel like, in a weird way.
Yeah.
Like, that should be, like, the moment, and then it's not, and that feels bad to me. I don't know.
Yeah, that whole last chunk does feel kind of mishandled to an extent. You know, the Andrew Ryan part, good build-up, good payoff, and then, you know, you finish it, and then you see all the little sisters you helped. I'm okay with that. And then, like, after that, it just devolves into, like, the apartment section's in there, but then they're, like, you're sick, and so you're constantly losing health. It's like they're trying to make the game interesting somehow, now that they just blew their load on Andrew Ryan.
If we're in this part of the game, we should probably talk about this twist. Did you, how do you feel about this twist? Because I was way into this twist, especially the first time through. It was like, what?
Yeah.
Dang.
First time through, I was way into it also, because I didn't, like we talked about before, the story is just like so sporadic in the audio logs that I didn't really understand all the minutia that was going on. Yeah. But like the twist makes sense because it's in stuff that largely isn't in audio logs for the most part.
Right.
So you can just kind of experience that while you're playing and then get to the twist, and then it still has a payoff.
Yeah.
And this most recent time, I picked up on more of the details. I figured out, or I kind of pieced together the background behind the twist and kind of the twist that comes along with the twist, like who your character is and that kind of situation. And that kind of got me more intrigued into it this second time around. So it still worked for me.
To me, that is almost this game's legacy, is just having this like AAA or AA or whatever you want to call it, just like first-person shooter on the Xbox, and having this crazy meta commentary thing going on what video games are and what your role in video games are, and like video game design in the context of this like thing that has nothing to do with that, like this own interesting thing going on over here. It's very cool.
Yeah, and if you hear anyone talking about Bioshock now, it's not going to be about the pipe hacking minigame or
no,
popping headshots on splicers with your upgraded machine gun. It's going to be the story and the twist. That opening, the opening, very, very like expertly choreographed.
Okay.
Really liked it a lot. After the plane crash part, like the plane crash part, that's fine. You know, set it up. The only words your character says. You know, establish some intrigue.
Right.
Give your character some and to make the twist, you know, be more impactful. And then I really liked how you're in the water, and then you're swimming in the water, and then this fire trail comes up in front of you, and it like lights up in the right order to like make your glance, go up, go over to the lighthouse. And that might be like the closest thing I've ever had to like an E3 video game trailer moment, where you just like pan over and you're like, whoa.
Oh, okay.
And it's like just it just frames so well that scene, like it just makes your gaze go right where they want it to for that money shot moment.
Yeah.
I like that a lot.
Yeah, they definitely put a lot of effort into the first half hour of this game, and you can tell. Yeah. And that's very cool to see it just like, because it's hard. I mean, I was playing the 360 version. It's kind of hard to go back to games from this era, I feel like. Unreal Engine back then was not what it is today, but just to see that level of production just firing on all cylinders and going for it is still really cool to go back to.
Definitely.
Man, Bioshock, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Game of its generation.
Totally.
Where do you want to put it on the list?
Ooh, I'm feeling up by Resident Evil 2. I'm feeling like that's where I put it.
Okay.
Where are you feeling? Where's your ballpark?
Man, I don't know. I mean, you like it, and I want to respect that. And I also like it conceptually. I think a lot of the art and stuff behind it is very cool. A lot of the gameplay and stuff doesn't work for me. But, I think this is better than like Metroid Prime.
Yes.
Like I would put it above Metroid Prime type of thing. Because it has more stuff going on.
Yeah.
So.
It does.
So if we can find a spot between those two, that's not a huge span.
No, that's a pretty nice window. That's isolated.
Gosh, I don't know. Man, I'm looking at Borderlands, and that's a game with a terrible story. Or
Yeah,
not a
it's
terrible
the-
story, but like
It's the negative image of Bioshock.
not much going on. But like Borderlands has way better gunplay, I feel like.
Yeah.
Like I had way more fun playing it.
Absolutely.
But there's nothing interesting about a lot of what happens. So it's like, I don't know.
Borderlands is hard, yeah. Yeah, I could see that above or below Borderlands.
I don't know, man. It's up
You
to
don't
you.
know?
I'll leave it up to you, but I feel like Borderlands is a good little, you know, post to hitch this game to, in a way.
Sure, yeah. How about between Sonic 3 and Borderlands? How do you feel about that?
I am A-okay with that, sir.
Beautiful.